Jake Morrison stood in the center of the vast chamber and felt very small. The Galactic Council Hall stretched above him like a cathedral made of living crystal. 12 massive seats formed a circle around the floor where he and Lisa Carter waited. Each seat held a different alien species, and each one looked down at the two humans with what Jake could only describe as disappointment. The crystalline being in the largest seat spoke first. Its voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. "Ambassador Morrison of Earth, you and your species have been called before this council to answer for your crimes." Jake kept his face calm, but his heart was racing. Lisa stood beside him with her hands clasped behind her back. She was 20 years younger than Jake, and this was her first time off Earth. He could feel her nervousness, even though she tried to hide it. "What crimes do you speak of?" Jake asked. His voice carried clearly in the strange acoustics of the chamber. The crystalline being's name was Zethkar, and he had been the council speaker for over 300 years. His body was made of what looked like blue diamond, and light moved through him when he spoke. "Your species has violated the territorial accords of Vega. You have established colonies in systems that were not assigned to you. You have expanded beyond your permitted borders." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Earth had been trying to join the Galactic Council for 50 years. They had followed every rule and regulation. They had been patient when other species looked down on them. They had waited for permission to expand beyond their home system while their population grew and resources became scarce. "We requested permission to colonize those systems," Jake said. "We waited 10 years for an answer. When none came, we assumed." "You assumed incorrectly," Zethkar interrupted. The light inside his crystalline body flared brighter. "The Council does not work on your primitive timeline. Decisions of this magnitude require careful consideration." A new voice spoke from Jake's left. This one belonged to Velthari of the Nexus Collective. Her species looked like giant spiders made of metal and energy. "Humans are known for their impatience. This is exactly the behavior we expected from such a young and emotional species." Jake's jaw tightened. Lisa stepped forward slightly as if to speak, but Jake held up a hand to stop her. "If we are so primitive and emotional, then why did you invite us to join the galactic community in the first place?" "That," said Zethkar, "was clearly an error in judgment." The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming sound that came from the various alien technologies. Jake looked around at the 12 species that made up the council. The hegemony with their massive bulk and armor plating. The ethereals who seemed to be made of living smoke. The collective with their shared consciousness and mechanical bodies. Each species was older than humanity by thousands of years. Each had technology that made Earth's greatest achievements look like toys. "The Council has reached a decision," Zethkar announced. "Humanity will be isolated from galactic society. A barrier will be erected around your solar system. No ships will enter. No ships will leave. No communication will be permitted. No trade will occur." Lisa gasped audibly. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "For how long?" he managed to ask. "Until your species learns to control itself," said Velthari. "Our models suggest this will take approximately 50 standard years. At that time, the Council will re-evaluate your fitness for galactic citizenship." Jake's mind raced. 50 years of complete isolation, no new technology from advanced civilizations, no trade for resources Earth didn't have, no help if disasters struck. Earth would be completely alone. "You have made a mistake," Jake said quietly. Zethkar's crystalline form pulsed with amusement. "Threats from a primitive species do not concern us, Ambassador Morrison." "It's not a threat," Jake replied. "It's a warning. You think isolation will break us. You think cutting us off from your technology and trade will make us weak and desperate. You think we'll come begging to be let back in on your terms." The council members exchanged what Jake assumed were looks of amusement, though it was hard to tell with alien faces. Every isolated species follows the same pattern, said Zethkar. First, they try to break the barrier through force. When that fails, they turn on each other, fighting over dwindling resources. Social collapse follows within decades. The survivors eventually request readmission to galactic society and accept whatever terms are offered. Jake straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Zethkar. You don't understand what made us strong in the first place. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth because we had the biggest claws or the strongest armor. We became strong because we learned to work together when everything was against us. We learned to innovate when we had nothing. We learned to survive when survival seemed impossible. Pretty words, said Velthari. We shall see how pretty they sound when your people are starving. The barrier generators began to hum. Jake could feel the energy building around the chamber. Soon, a wall of pure force would surround the Sol system, and Earth would be truly alone for the first time since joining galactic society. You think you're punishing us, Jake said, as the energy built to a crescendo. But you're giving us the greatest gift possible. You're giving us the chance to become who we really are, without anyone holding us back. The last thing Jake saw before the teleportation beam took him and Lisa back to their ship was Zethkar's crystalline form, pulsing with what might have been laughter. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her hand against the observation window and stared out at the barrier that now surrounded their entire solar system. From the research station orbiting Neptune, it looked like a wall of shimmering blue energy that stretched across the stars. She had been studying it for 5 years now and still could barely understand how it worked. Any luck with the quantum scans today? Asked her assistant, Dr. Kevin Blake, as he floated over in the zero gravity of the lab. Kevin was young and brilliant and had been Elena's student before the barrier went up. Now he was one of Earth's leading experts on alien energy fields. The same readings as always, Elena said with a sigh. The barrier absorbs any energy we direct at it and converts it to more barrier material. It's like trying to break down a wall by throwing bricks at it. The wall just gets stronger. Down on Earth, the governments had stopped panicking about 3 years ago. The first 2 years after the barrier activation had been chaos. Stock markets crashed. Some countries tried to blame others for getting humanity kicked out of galactic society. There had been riots and protests and calls for war against enemies that could not be reached, but humans were adaptable. When the panic faded, people began to work. Captain Ryan Davis had been promoted to head of the new Sol Defense Force. His job was to protect Earth from threats that might come from within the solar system, since threats from outside were now impossible. Ryan stood on the bridge of the SDF Endeavour and watched as asteroid mining ships returned to Earth orbit loaded with rare metals. Without access to galactic trade, Earth had to find everything it needed within its own solar system. The asteroid belt had become humanity's new frontier. Mining Operation 7 reports successful extraction of platinum and rhodium, announced Lieutenant Julie Martinez from her station. That's enough rare Earth metals to build another dozen fusion reactors. Ryan nodded. The fusion reactors were Elena's design, based on technology Earth had developed before joining galactic society. They were crude compared to what the advanced alien civilizations used, but they worked. More importantly, they used materials that could be found in Earth's solar system. On Mars, the colony had grown from a research outpost to a city of 50,000 people. The red planet was being transformed by massive atmospheric processors that slowly added oxygen to the thin air. Dr. Marcus Webb oversaw the terraforming project from his laboratory in New London Crater. Marcus had been one of Earth's top theoretical physicists before the barrier. The Galactic Council had dismissed his work as primitive guessing. Now, with no alien technology to copy, Marcus was free to pursue his own theories about space and time and energy. The gravitational wave experiments are showing promise, Marcus told his team during their weekly meeting. If we can learn to manipulate gravity, we won't need the Council's technology to travel between stars. We can develop our own methods. Meanwhile, Dr. Susan Rivers coordinated research projects across the entire solar system from her office on Luna. The moon had become the headquarters for Earth's science programs. Without gravitational interference from Earth, the telescopes and laboratories on Luna could do work that was impossible on the home planet. "We're seeing innovations happening faster than ever before," Susan reported to the Global Council during their monthly conference. "When we had access to alien technology, our scientists spent their time trying to understand and copy what already existed. Now they're forced to create new solutions from scratch." The Global Council had been formed after the barrier went up. Representatives from every nation on Earth met in Geneva to coordinate humanity's response to isolation. They had learned quickly that old rivalries were a luxury they could not afford. President Amanda Torres of the Americas Union spoke for many when she addressed the council. "We can spend our energy fighting each other over scraps, or we can work together to build something better than what we had before. The choice seems obvious to me." The choice was not obvious to everyone. Some groups wanted to focus all efforts on breaking the barrier and returning to galactic society. Others wanted to prepare for war against the aliens who had imprisoned them. But most people simply wanted to survive and build a future for their children. Dr. Matthew Kim studied the psychological effects of isolation on human society from his research center in Australia. His findings surprised many people. Instead of breaking down under stress, humans were becoming more cooperative and creative. When faced with external threats, humans have always pulled together, Matthew explained to a gathering of sociologists and government officials. The barrier is the ultimate external threat. It forces us to depend on each other in ways we never had to before. Children born after the barrier went up would never know a galaxy beyond their solar system. They grew up learning that Earth and its neighboring planets were all of reality. Teachers struggled with how to explain the alien civilizations that existed beyond the barrier. "Should we tell them about the council?" asked Dr. Lisa Carter during an education planning meeting. Lisa had returned from the Galactic Council as one of only 2 humans to ever stand in that chamber. Now she worked to help humanity adapt to its new reality. "We tell them the truth," replied Education Minister Carlos Santos. "We tell them that other civilizations exist, but that humanity chose to walk its own path. We tell them that we are building something new and better than what came before." The barrier had been in place for 5 years, and Earth's population was growing faster than ever. Without the option to emigrate to other star systems, humans had to find ways to support more people within their own solar system. The asteroid colonies were expanding. The Mars cities were growing. Even Venus was being surveyed for potential floating colonies in its upper atmosphere. Captain Ryan Davis received reports from across the solar system every day. The asteroid belt now hosted 17 permanent mining stations. Jupiter's moons had research bases studying the giant planet's radiation and magnetic fields. Saturn's rings were being harvested for ice and rare minerals. "We're becoming a true solar system civilization," Ryan told his staff during their morning briefing. 5 years ago, we were a single-planet species with a few small outposts. Now, we have permanent populations on dozens of worlds and habitats. Dr. Elena Rodriguez continued her study of the barrier, but her research had expanded to include its unexpected effects. The energy field that surrounded their solar system seemed to create unique conditions that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. "The barrier isn't just keeping us in," Elena explained to her research team. "It's creating a laboratory environment where we can experiment with physical laws in ways that might not be possible in normal space. We might accidentally discover things that the Council never imagined." As the 5th anniversary of the barrier, activation approached, humanity was not breaking as the Council had predicted. Instead, they were growing stronger and more united than they had ever been. The question was no longer whether they would survive isolation, but what they would become because of it. Captain Amanda Torres watched through the viewport as the massive construction platform assembled another section of Habitat 7. The orbital city was taking shape around Jupiter's moon Europa, and when finished, it would house 2 million people. 15 years after the barrier went up, humanity was not just surviving, but thriving in ways the Galactic Council had never predicted. Construction is ahead of schedule, reported engineer Kevin Blake from his control station. Kevin had become one of Earth's leading experts on large-scale construction after spending a decade building asteroid mining facilities. "We should have the main residential sections complete within 6 months." Amanda nodded and made notes on her tablet. She was responsible for coordinating all major construction projects in the outer solar system. The job had not existed before the barrier because humans had never built anything larger than small research stations beyond Mars. Now they were creating entire cities in space. The technology that made these massive projects possible had been developed entirely by human scientists working without any alien assistance. Dr. Susan Rivers led the Global Science Consortium from her headquarters on Luna, and her teams had achieved breakthroughs that amazed even their creators. The new fusion reactors are 40% more efficient than anything the Council ever shared with us, Susan reported during her weekly address to the Global Assembly. "Our quantum computers process information faster than the systems we saw on alien ships. Our artificial intelligence networks help coordinate projects across the entire solar system without replacing human decision-making." The artificial intelligence development had been particularly important. Before the barrier, Earth had been warned by the Council that advanced AI was dangerous and should be limited. Human scientists had accepted those warnings and kept their computer systems relatively simple. Now free to experiment, they had created AI networks that worked with humans instead of trying to replace them. Dr. Matthew Kim continued his psychological research from his expanded facility in the Australian outback. His studies now covered populations across the solar system, and his findings continued to surprise the scientific community. Isolation has not made humans more aggressive or desperate, Matthew explained to a gathering of social scientists from across the solar system. "Instead, we have become more cooperative and creative. When you remove external support systems, people either break down or learn to work together. Humans chose cooperation. The cooperation extended far beyond individual communities. The old, national boundaries on Earth had not disappeared, but they had become less important as humanity faced challenges that affected the entire species. The Global Assembly met monthly to coordinate resource distribution and scientific research across dozens of worlds and habitats. Mars had become humanity's second major population center, with over 3 million people living in underground cities, connected by vast tunnel networks. The red planet's atmosphere was slowly becoming breathable thanks to the terraforming work led by Dr. Marcus Webb. "We're not just adding oxygen to the atmosphere," Marcus explained during a tour of the atmospheric processing facility outside New Geneva. "We're learning to manipulate planetary environments in ways that could eventually make any world habitable. Venus might be next." Venus had indeed become the focus of humanity's next major expansion project. The planet's crushing atmosphere and acid rain made the surface impossible to colonize, but the upper atmosphere was surprisingly Earth-like. Floating cities were being designed that would harvest the planet's abundant carbon dioxide and convert it to useful materials. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had moved her research operation to a new facility orbiting Saturn. Her studies of the barrier had led to discoveries about space-time manipulation that opened entirely new fields of physics. The barrier's energy field created unique conditions that allowed experiments impossible anywhere else in the galaxy. "We're learning to bend space on a small scale," Elena told her research team during their daily briefing. "If we can scale up these effects, we might be able to create our own faster-than-light travel without needing the Council's technology." The Skip Drive project was humanity's most ambitious undertaking. Traditional faster-than-light travel required exotic materials and energy sources that Earth could not produce. But Elena's team had discovered that the barrier's energy field could be manipulated to create shortcuts through space-time that worked entirely differently. "We're not breaking the laws of physics," explained Dr. Rachel Stone, who had joined Elena's team after completing her doctorate in theoretical physics. "We're finding new laws that the Council never discovered because they never had a laboratory environment like our barrier." The first successful skip drive test had moved a small probe from Saturn to Jupiter in less than an hour. The technology was still experimental and dangerous, but it proved that humans could develop their own methods of fast travel without depending on alien science. Settlement Coordinator Julie Martinez oversaw the expansion of human populations throughout the solar system from her office on the Asteroid Station Ceres. What had started as mining outposts had grown into permanent communities with their own cultures and traditions. "We have over 50 million people living permanently outside Earth's atmosphere," Julie reported to the Global Assembly. "Each community has adapted to its environment in unique ways. The asteroid miners have developed new forms of three-dimensional art that only work in zero gravity. The Mars colonists have created music that uses the planet's thin atmosphere to create sounds impossible on Earth. The cultural developments were as important as the technological advances. Humanity was not just building new cities and habitats, but creating new ways of living that had never existed before. Children born in the low gravity of Luna moved differently than Earth children. Families on the asteroid stations developed new forms of communication suited to their environment. Dr. Ashley Turner led xenobiology research teams that studied life forms found throughout the solar system. Earth scientists had always assumed that life was rare, but they were discovering microbial organisms in places that had been thought impossible. "We're finding life in the subsurface oceans of Europa and Enceladus," Ashley explained during a presentation to the Science Consortium. "We're discovering bacterial communities in the asteroid belt that survive in hard vacuum. Life is far more adaptable than anyone realized." The discovery of native solar system life forms had philosophical implications as well as scientific ones. Humans were not alone even within their own barrier. They were part of a complex ecosystem that extended throughout their solar system, and they were learning to see themselves as guardians rather than conquerors of their cosmic environment. The Galactic Council's monitoring stations detected energy, readings from the Sol system that made no sense according to their understanding of human capabilities. Their computers reported impossible fusion reactor efficiency ratings and gravity wave emissions that suggested experiments with space-time manipulation. "The sensors must be malfunctioning," declared Council Speaker Zethkar during a routine review of isolated species. Primitive humans could not possibly achieve such technological advances in only 15 years. But the Council's certainty was beginning to show cracks. Other member species had begun to ask questions about humanity's isolation. Some wondered if the punishment had been too severe. Others questioned whether the Council's models for predicting species behavior were as accurate as they claimed. As the 15th anniversary of the barrier activation approached, humanity was no longer the same species that had been banished from galactic society. They had become something new and stronger and entirely unexpected. The question was no longer whether they would survive, but what they would do when they were ready to rejoin the galaxy on their own terms. Dr. Rachel Stone stared at the readings on her screen and checked them for the 5th time in an hour. The numbers could not be right, but every instrument confirmed what seemed impossible. The barrier that had imprisoned humanity for 25 years was not just a wall keeping them inside their solar system. It was accidentally creating the perfect conditions for experiments that could revolutionize physics. "Elena, you need to see this," Rachel called to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who was working at another station in their research facility orbiting Saturn. The two women had been studying the barrier together for over a decade, and Rachel had never seen readings like these. Elena floated over in the low-gravity environment and looked at Rachel's screen. Her expression changed from curiosity to amazement as she read the data. These gravity wave patterns suggest the barrier is creating artificial space-time curvature. That should be impossible with the energy levels we're detecting. That's what I thought too, Rachel replied. But look at these quantum field readings. The barrier's energy matrix is creating a standing wave pattern that allows for localized space-time manipulation. We're not just trapped inside a prison. We're inside the galaxy's most advanced physics laboratory. The implications hit both women at the same time. If they could understand and control the barrier's effects, they might be able to achieve faster-than-light travel without needing exotic matter or impossible energy sources. They might be able to skip through space-time itself using the prison. That was meant to contain them. Commander Tyler Morgan received the call from Rachel's team while he was overseeing construction of humanity's newest deep space vessel. The ship was designed to test the theoretical skip drive technology that had been under development for 3 years. Now it seemed they might have found the key to making it work. "Are you certain about these readings?" Tyler asked as he reviewed the data Rachel had sent him. As commander of the Sol Defense Force's Experimental Division, Tyler had seen many promising theories fail when put to practical testing. "We've confirmed the results with instruments throughout the solar system," Elena's voice came through the communication channel from Saturn. "The barrier isn't just containing us, it's creating a unique environment that allows space-time manipulation experiments that would be impossible anywhere else in the galaxy." Tyler looked out the viewport of his ship at the barrier that surrounded their solar system. For 25 years, it had been the symbol of humanity's imprisonment. Now it might become the key to their liberation. "How soon can you adapt the skip drive to use these barrier effects?" "Give us 6 months," Rachel replied. "Maybe less if the engineering teams can build the new field generators we'll need." The news spread quickly through the scientific community and beyond. Settlement Coordinator Julie Martinez received updates on the discovery while overseeing the expansion of Titan Colony. The moon of Saturn now housed over 500,000 people in underground cities that mine the moon's methane, lakes for fuel. "This changes everything," Julie told her staff during their morning briefing. "If we can develop working skip drive technology, we won't be limited to slow travel between planets. We could establish colonies throughout the solar system instantly." Dr. Ashley Turner was studying native life forms in the asteroid belt when she learned about Rachel's discovery. Ashley's xenobiology teams had found complex ecosystems living in the vacuum of space feeding on solar radiation and cosmic particles. The discovery of skip drive technology would allow much more detailed studies of these unique life forms. "We could set up research stations anywhere in the solar system within hours instead of months," Ashley explained to her research teams. "We could study the effects of Jupiter's radiation on asteroid belt organisms in real time instead of waiting years for data to travel between stations." Dr. Marcus Webb continued his terraforming work on Mars, but now with new possibilities opening up. Marcus had been slowly transforming the red planet's atmosphere for 15 years. With skip drive technology, the process could be accelerated by bringing resources from anywhere in the solar system instantly. "We could bring water ice from the outer planets and rare gases from Jupiter's atmosphere," Marcus told the Mars Colonial Council. "Instead of taking centuries to make Mars fully habitable, we might complete the process in decades." The first test of the modified skip drive took place in the space between Earth and Luna, where the barrier effects were weakest. Commander Tyler Morgan piloted the test vessel himself with Dr. Rachel Stone monitoring the field generators from the engineering station. "Field generators are stable," Rachel reported as the ship prepared for its first skip. "Barrier resonance is holding steady at optimal frequency." Tyler activated the skip drive and felt reality bend around the ship. Space seemed to fold in on itself and then snap back to normal. In less than a second, they had traveled from Earth orbit to the far side of Luna. The journey that normally took 3 days had happened almost instantly. "Skip successful," Tyler announced to the teams monitoring from across the solar system. "We have achieved faster-than-light travel using our own technology within the barrier." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just survived isolation, but had developed technology that might be superior to what the Galactic Council used. The barrier that was meant to break them had given them tools the Council had never imagined. Dr. Susan Rivers coordinated the expansion of skip drive technology from her headquarters on Luna. As head of the Global Science Consortium, Susan had overseen humanity's technological development throughout the isolation period. Now she was witnessing the breakthrough that would change everything. "We need to start small and build gradually," Susan told the engineering teams working on skip drive implementation. "Test flights within the solar system first, short-range cargo transport, passenger service only after we're certain the technology is safe." Within months, skip drive-equipped ships were revolutionizing life throughout the solar system. Travel between Earth and Mars that once took 9 months now took 9 minutes. The asteroid mining operations became incredibly efficient when ships could skip instantly between mining sites and processing stations. Dr. Matthew Kim studied the psychological effects of instant travel on human communities from his research centers that now spanned multiple worlds. His findings showed that humans adapted to the new technology far better than expected. Instead of becoming isolated from each other by distance, humans are becoming more connected, Matthew reported to the Global Assembly. Families separated by millions of miles can now visit each other regularly. Scientists can collaborate in person even when working on different planets. The Galactic Council's monitoring systems detected impossible energy signatures from the Sol system, but their computers could not interpret the readings. Ships appeared to be moving faster than light within the barrier, but the energy patterns made no sense according to Council physics. "The monitoring equipment must be damaged," Council Speaker Zethkar declared when presented with the data. "Humans could not possibly have developed faster-than-light technology in only 25 years. They barely understood basic fusion when we isolated them." But some Council members were beginning to have doubts. The energy readings from human space were becoming too consistent to dismiss as equipment failures. There were reports of gravity, wave emissions that suggested experiments with space-time itself. Some species were quietly beginning to wonder if the Council had made a mistake. As humanity celebrated the 25th anniversary of their isolation, they were no longer the same. Species that had been banished from galactic society. They had developed technology that worked on principles the Council had never discovered. They had learned to cooperate on a scale that impressed even themselves. Most importantly, they had proven that isolation had made them stronger rather than weaker. The barrier still surrounded their solar system, but it no longer felt like a prison. It had become humanity's greatest asset, and the source of discoveries that would soon shock the galaxy. The Council believed they had broken humanity's spirit. Instead, they had given humans the perfect environment to discover their true potential. Council member Vexenari of the Hegemony Fleet studied the latest reports from the Sol system monitoring stations with growing concern. The energy readings had become impossible to ignore. Gravity wave signatures suggested the humans were somehow manipulating space-time itself. Fusion reactor outputs exceeded theoretical maximums. Most disturbing of all were the faster-than-light travel signatures that appeared throughout their solar system on a daily basis. "The monitoring equipment is functioning properly," Vexenari announced to the emergency council session that had been called to discuss the human situation. "I have personally verified every sensor array. The readings are accurate." Council Speaker Zethkar's crystalline form pulsed with irritation. "You are suggesting that primitive humans have developed technology superior to our own in merely 38 years. That is impossible." "I am suggesting that our assumptions about human capabilities were incorrect," Vexenari replied. "The evidence indicates they have not only survived isolation, but have achieved technological advances that our models said were impossible." The council chamber filled with the various sounds that different species made when agitated. The 12-member races had never encountered a situation like this. Every previous isolated species had followed the predicted pattern of decline and eventual surrender. Humanity was breaking rules that had held true for millions of years. Perhaps they are attempting to break the barrier through brute force, suggested Velthari of the Nexus Collective. The energy readings could indicate desperate attempts to escape their prison. Vexnari consulted his tactical displays. The energy patterns are too controlled and consistent for desperate escape attempts. They appear to be using the barrier itself as part of their technology. Somehow they have learned to work with the containment field rather than against it. This revelation sent shockwaves through the Council. The barrier technology was among the most advanced in the galaxy. The idea that a primitive species could not only understand it but improve upon it challenged everything they believed about. Technological development. We must take action, Vexnari declared. If humans have truly developed technology that rivals our own, they could become a threat to galactic stability. We should destabilize their star to force immediate surrender. Before they become too dangerous, the suggestion caused an uproar in the chamber. Destroying an entire solar system was an extreme measure that had only been used twice in galactic history. But Vexnari's tactical analysis showed that humanity's rapid technological development posed an unprecedented threat. Perhaps a less extreme approach would be appropriate, suggested Zethkar. We could partially lower the barrier and offer them terms for conditional readmission to galactic society. If they refuse, we can demonstrate our superior firepower and force compliance. The Council voted to implement Zethkar's proposal. The barrier around the Sol system would be temporarily lowered to allow a hegemony fleet to enter and deliver the Council's ultimatum. Humanity would surrender immediately and accept whatever terms were offered or face complete destruction. Admiral Laura Bennett received the alert from the outer system monitoring stations while reviewing reports in her office aboard the orbital command station above Earth. The Sol Defense Force had grown from a small peacekeeping organization to a sophisticated military capable of protecting humanity's interests throughout their solar system. Admiral, the barrier is fluctuating, reported Captain Nathan Cross from his position aboard the SDF Liberty. Nathan commanded the newest and most advanced ship in the human fleet. The Liberty was equipped with skip drive technology and weapons, systems that had been developed entirely during the isolation period. Are we seeing a malfunction, or is this intentional? Laura asked as she studied the sensor readings on her displays. After 38 years, the barrier had never shown any instability. The timing seemed too convenient to be accidental. Unknown. Admiral, but we're detecting ships approaching the barrier from outside, Nathan replied. Large vessels with energy signatures consistent with Council technology. Laura felt her heart rate increase. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the isolation began. They had always known the Council might eventually decide to check on their prisoners. The question was whether humanity was ready to face their former captors as equals rather than supplicants. All units to battle stations, Laura ordered. Deploy the fleet in defensive formation around Earth, but do not take aggressive action unless fired upon. We're about to find out whether 38 years of isolation made us strong enough to stand on our own. The hegemony fleet that entered the Sol system consisted of 12 massive warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could destroy planets, and their shields could absorb the energy output of an entire star. By every measure, they should have been able to crush human resistance without effort. But Captain Nathan Cross was not intimidated as he brought the Liberty into position to intercept the lead hegemony vessel. His ship might be smaller, but it incorporated technology the Council had never seen. More importantly, it was crewed by humans who had spent nearly 4 decades learning to survive against impossible odds. Incoming transmission from the lead enemy. Vessel, announced Communications Officer Kevin Blake from his station. They're demanding to speak with human leadership. Put them through, Nathan replied. Let's hear what they have to say. The face that appeared on the main screen belonged to Fleet Commander Kexavat of the Hegemony. The alien's armored features, showed surprise at seeing human technology that looked nothing like the primitive ships they had expected to find. "Human vessel, you will stand down immediately," Kexvat declared. "The Galactic Council offers your species one final opportunity to surrender and accept terms for readmission to galactic society." Nathan smiled calmly at the alien commander. "This is Captain Nathan Cross of the Solar Defense Force vessel Liberty. You are trespassing in human space without permission. State your business or leave immediately." The alien's expression showed shock at being addressed as an equal by what he considered a primitive species. "You are in no position to make demands human. Our ships outgun yours by factors of thousands. Surrender now or face complete annihilation." "I don't think you understand the situation," Nathan replied. "You've been away for 38 years. A lot has changed since you locked us in here. We're not the same species you remember." Admiral Laura Bennett's voice came through the communication channel from the command station. "Fleet Commander Kexvat, this is Admiral Laura Bennett speaking for humanity. Your council made the mistake of thinking isolation would break us. Instead, it taught us who we really are. We thank you for the greatest gift you could have given us." "Gift," Kexvat sputtered. "We imprisoned you to teach your species humility." "You freed us from dependence on others," Laura replied. "You forced us to become self-reliant and innovative. You gave us 38 years to discover our true potential without interference. For that, we are genuinely grateful." The hegemony. Commander's tactical displays were showing readings that made no sense. The human ships were small, but their energy signatures suggested technology that should not exist. Their fusion reactors were impossibly efficient. Their shield generators used principles his computers could not analyze. "Impossible," Kexvat declared. "Your technology was primitive when we isolated you. You could not have advanced this far without our guidance." "That's where you made your mistake," Nathan said as the Liberty moved into a position that demonstrated its superior maneuverability. "You assumed we needed your guidance. You assumed we couldn't innovate on our own. You were wrong on both counts." The standoff continued for several hours as more council ships arrived and more human vessels took defensive positions. Both sides were trying to evaluate the other's capabilities without triggering a battle that could destroy both fleets. Finally, Kexvat received new orders from the Council. If humanity would not surrender voluntarily, they would be forced to comply. Through demonstration of superior firepower, one human ship would be destroyed as an example. The rest would surely surrender when faced with inevitable annihilation. But when the hegemony flagship fired its main weapons at the Liberty, something unprecedented happened. The human ship simply vanished from normal space for a split second, then reappeared behind the hegemony fleet. The impossible maneuver demonstrated technology that violated every rule of physics the Council understood. "Our weapons missed," reported Kexvat's tactical officer in confusion. "The human ship appears to have moved through folded space." Nathan's voice came through the communication channel, calm and confident. "That was a warning shot. Our turn to demonstrate our capabilities. I suggest you withdraw before this situation escalates beyond diplomatic solutions." For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced an opponent that could match their technology and exceed their expectations. The species they had tried. To break through isolation had become something entirely new and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The barrier around the Sol system did not fall because humanity broke it. Instead, it simply shut down when Dr. Rachel Stone entered the correct shutdown sequence from her research station orbiting Saturn. 40 years of studying the alien technology had taught human scientists not just how it worked, but how to improve it. The prison had become humanity's greatest teacher. Commander Alex Williams stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel New Horizon as it prepared to make the first human journey beyond the Sol system in 4 decades. Alex had been born after the barrier went up and had never seen stars that were not part of his home system. For him, this was not a return to galactic society, but humanity's first contact with the wider universe. All systems ready for skip drive activation, reported Navigation Officer Julie Martinez from her station. Julie had helped design the skip drive technology that would carry them across interstellar space faster than any Council ship. Destination. Coordinates locked in for Alpha Centauri. Alex nodded and activated the ship's communication system. This is Commander Williams of the Human Diplomatic Corps vessel New Horizon. We are departing Sol system to re-establish contact with galactic civilization. Admiral Bennett, you have control of the home fleet. Admiral Laura Bennett watched from the command deck of the orbital station above Earth as the New Horizon activated. It skipped drive and vanished from normal space. In less than an hour, the ship would reach Alpha Centauri and announce humanity's return to the galaxy. After 40 years of isolation, Earth's children were ready to take their place among the stars. The galaxy that Alex Williams found when he emerged from skip space was very different from the one humanity had left behind. Several Council member species had stagnated during the decades of rigid hierarchy and controlled development. Others faced new threats that their traditional approaches could not handle. The ethereal collective had lost 3 colony worlds to an expanding stellar phenomenon that their scientists could not understand. The Nexus Empire was facing internal rebellion as member species demanded more autonomy. Most surprisingly, the mighty hegemony fleet had been reduced to a fraction of its former strength after losing a war with extragalactic invaders. We are receiving multiple distress signals, reported Communications Officer Dr. Kevin Blake as the New Horizon approached the former Council territories. It appears that galactic civilization has faced significant challenges during our absence. Alex studied the tactical displays that showed the current state of galactic politics. The old Council structure was fragmenting as member species pursued their own interests instead of working together. The rigid hierarchies that had once seemed so powerful were proving unable to adapt to changing circumstances. Set course for the neutral zone, Alex ordered. We'll establish a diplomatic station there and invite representatives from all interested parties. It's time for humanity to offer the galaxy something it's never had before. Director Kate Patterson arrived at the diplomatic station aboard the human vessel Enterprise 6 months after first contact was re-established. Kate had spent her career developing what humans called the Galactic Initiative. Instead of seeking readmission to the old Council structure, humanity was offering something entirely new. The traditional approach to galactic governance has failed. Kate explained to the assembled representatives from 43 different species. Hierarchies based on age and technological superiority create stagnation and resentment. We propose a partnership based on complementary strengths and mutual benefit. The alien diplomats listened with varying degrees of skepticism and interest. Some species had thrived under the old Council system and wanted to restore it. Others had been oppressed by the hierarchy and welcomed the possibility of change. A few were simply curious about what humans had learned during their isolation. Former Council Speaker Zethkar attended the diplomatic conference as a minor advisory member of the Crystalline Consortium. His species had lost much of their influence. When the Council structure collapsed, the being who had once sentenced humanity to isolation now found himself listening to human proposals for galactic reform. You speak of cooperation and partnership, Zethkar said during one of the formal sessions. But cooperation requires trust. Why should any species trust humans after your aggressive expansion violated territorial agreements? Ambassador Jake Morrison answered the question. Jake was now 78 years old, but still served as humanity's senior diplomat. He had been present when the barrier went up and had lived to see it come down on humanity's terms. Because we learned something during our isolation that the Council never understood, Jake replied. True strength doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from working together to solve problems that no single species can handle alone. The proof of humanity's new approach came when the extragalactic invaders returned to threaten the former hegemony territories. The aliens used technology that the traditional Council species could not counter. Their ships phased in and out of normal space in ways that made conventional weapons useless. But human skip-drive technology operated on similar principles. Captain Nathan Cross led a combined human and alien fleet against the invaders, using tactics that had been developed during the isolation period. The battle was won not through superior firepower, but through innovative thinking and unprecedented cooperation between species. "The humans fight like no species we have ever encountered," reported Admiral Velthari of the Nexus Collective after the victory. "They adapt their tactics in real time and coordinate with other species as if they were all part of the same military organization." Dr. Susan Rivers established the new Galactic Science Consortium with headquarters on Luna. The organization brought together researchers from dozens of species to work on problems that affected the entire galaxy. Unlike the old Council research programs, the new consortium shared all discoveries freely among member species. "When you hoard knowledge to maintain superiority, you limit everyone's potential," Susan explained to the first Interspecies Science Conference. "When you share discoveries freely, everyone benefits, and innovation accelerates." The changes were dramatic and far-reaching. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together on projects that benefited everyone. The rigid territorial boundaries that had caused so many conflicts were replaced by cooperative resource-sharing agreements. Most importantly, the galaxy began developing new technologies at a rate that had not been seen for thousands of years. Dr. Marcus Webb led terraforming, projects that transformed hostile worlds into garden planets. Dr. Ashley Turner's xenobiology research helped establish nature preserves that protected unique life forms throughout the galaxy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's space-time research opened new fields of physics that revolutionized interstellar travel for all species. 5 years after humanity's return to galactic society, the new partnership structure had become the dominant form of government in known space. The old council chambers on Centauri Prime had been converted into a museum. The new Galactic Assembly met on a rotating basis with different species hosting each session. Former council speaker Zethkar found himself serving as an advisor to the species that had once been his prisoners. During a private meeting with Ambassador Jake Morrison, he finally admitted what many had come to realize. "We made a fundamental error in our understanding of strength," Zethkar said, as the two beings stood looking out at the stars from the observation deck of the new assembly station. "We believed that power came from technology and age and the ability to control others." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "We learned something different during our isolation. Real power comes from the ability to adapt and cooperate and create solutions that benefit everyone. The barrier you used to punish us became the classroom where we learned that lesson." "The irony is not lost on us," Zethkar replied. "We intended to break your spirit and force you to accept our terms. Instead, we gave you the opportunity to develop strength we never imagined possible." The final session of the old Galactic Council had been a ceremony marking the transition to the new partnership structure. Jake Morrison had been invited to speak as the representative of humanity. His words became the founding principles of the new galactic civilization. 40 years ago, you believed that isolation would break us," Jake had said to the assembled representatives. "You thought cutting us off from your technology and guidance would make us weak and desperate. You were wrong about our nature and wrong about the source of true strength." Jake paused and looked around the chamber at species that had once considered humanity primitive and unworthy of respect. "You gave us the greatest gift possible when you forced us to stand on our own. You taught us that we didn't need your permission to become who we were meant to be." The new galactic civilization that emerged from humanity's return was stronger and more innovative than anything that had come before. Species that had stagnated under rigid hierarchies began developing new technologies and art forms. Conflicts that had lasted for millennia were resolved through cooperation rather than conquest. Children throughout the galaxy grew up learning about the species that had been isolated as punishment but had emerged stronger than their captors.